going to talk about one of the parts of climate change that some people find the most tricky, and that's taking action. How can we create meaningful change in our lives, communities, and the world? Sometimes it can feel really overwhelming to take action because there are so many solutions and we just don't know where to start. Hopefully, this video will help with that. Something that can stop me from taking action is feeling helpless. Like, I'm just one person. How can I possibly change the fate of the entire planet? But I also notice that when I do take action, even a small action like using my compost bin, I start to feel better. Taking action is one of the best antidotes we have to feeling hopeless. Getting involved in climate solutions is a great way to lessen the heavy emotions we feel. And as a plus, we end up on the right side of the problem. And honestly, once you start to take action, you'll begin to notice that people are taking action all around you. It's kind of like when you hear a word for the first time, like anthropogenic, and then all of a sudden you hear people saying it all the time. By the way, the definition of anthropogenic is resulting from the influence of human beings. So for example, climate change is anthropogenic. Maybe you're thinking, but it's not up to individuals. It's about collective action. Governments and big companies, they need to step up. And yes, you are absolutely right. But it's not really an either-or situation. It's also true that individual actions are the catalyst for broader change. Governments act in response to public pressure, and businesses respond to our personal choices. We need individual and collective action to make this work. Another reason why individual actions matter? Because as humans, we kind of like to do what other people do. Have you ever noticed how trends start at your school? First, a couple of people start wearing something new. And then a few more, and all of a sudden, basically everyone at school is wearing it. Like when I was in grade 7, my friend Danielle wore leg warmers to school one day. And by the next week, all the girls in my class had leg warmers. We actually have a lot of influence in our social groups. Solving climate change kind of works the same way. Studies show that people are more likely to get solar panels on their roofs when they see that their neighbors have them. So, as individuals, it's definitely important to get involved in climate solutions. But how do you start? Well, think of it like this. You can do stuff in your own life, you can be a role model for others, and you can get political. We like to call this your personal space, your public space, and your political space. Let's dive into each of these categories. I'm going to use food as an example of how to take action in each of these spaces. First, making change in your personal space means those actions you can take day to day. In Canada today, many of us don't necessarily have a clear understanding of where our food comes from, unless we live on a farm or hunt for our own food. A lot of us just go to the grocery store and buy food that's prepackaged and ready to eat. This makes it easy for us to feel disconnected from food. When we don't see the full process of how our food arrived on our plate, we lose appreciation for it. One way to take climate action in your personal space is actually really easy. Just learn more. We can gain more respect for our food and where it comes from when we learn more about the animals and plants that we eat and the people who farm them. This leads to a deeper appreciation for and a new connection to food. Here's another idea. Explore the different ways that you can eat. There are some foods that have higher impacts than others, such as meat. Many people are choosing to replace some of their meat with other protein sources to reduce their emissions. A lot of athletes have actually started to notice and advocate for the benefits of plant-based diets as well. Athletes like Venus Williams, Kyrie Irving, and Justin Fields have cut meat out, claiming that they are now more energetic, their mood is better, and it's improved their performance. Chris Paul even claims his plant-based diet led to his return to basketball after 4 seasons away. That being said, it can be difficult for people to cut meat out completely because it holds a lot of meaning in our families and within our cultures. My roommates don't want to stop eating meat, but we have decided that as a household, we're going to try to eat less meat. And actually, skipping meat for just 1 day each week can reduce our annual carbon footprint as much as not driving a car for an entire month. So if you aren't ready to be vegetarian yet, cutting out meat for even 1 day of the week is still impactful. Okay, so those are some things we could do in our personal space. But what about our public space? Our public space includes our friends, extended family members, clubs or teams that we're on. Basically, it means action that involves community. When you take action in your public space, you create ripples. And one of the best ways to make ripples is to talk. So after you learn about where your food comes from, you can tell other people about it too. This includes sharing information on your socials as well. And don't worry about knowing all the facts. Actually, the most impactful way to talk to people about climate change is sharing your personal stories. Those are way more interesting than some boring statistics. Here's another idea for acting in your public space. A lot of emissions from farming vegetables comes from industrial fertilizers used in the farming process. If you wanted to take action in your public space, you could start or join a community garden with your neighbors and grow veggies close to home without using any harmful chemicals. Okay, so we've talked about our personal and our public space. What about our political space? Acting at the political level means reaching outside of your direct social groups to have your voice heard on a larger scale. An easy way to figure out where to start taking political action is to look at your carbon footprint, and specifically at the areas that you feel like you don't have control to make decisions. This is where we need to take control back. When it comes to where and how our food is grown, a lot of us don't feel like we have much control over this. To act in your political space, you could use your voice to advocate for better farming practices, including better treatment of farm laborers here in Canada. For this, you don't have to start something brand new. Try joining an existing group or finding petitions online to sign. There are already a lot of great organizations in Canada advocating for this. Just support them. Something else that is really impactful and that you should definitely do once you're old enough is vote. I always vote, and I do my research on which party is doing the most for a climate-safe future. Voting is a very important political action, and maybe one day you could be the one that people are voting for. Did you know having lots of different voices in political leaders actually gets us better outcomes? Like countries with more women in power pass more ambitious climate laws. So don't feel deterred from politics just because you don't see yourself represented there. Even if you feel too young, we actually need a range of ages in politics for the best possible representation. So I've used food as an example of how we can take action in our personal, public, and political space. But of course, there are a lot more things we could do in all the other areas of climate action too. Here are some examples. There is a group of Girl Scouts in the States who did something really neat. The Girl Scouts of the Wisconsin-Bachelin Council wanted to raise awareness of climate change solutions. After doing some research, they got really interested in a topic that is not that glamorous, but is a large contributor to global warming: concrete production. So they made a video to educate people about the embodied carbon that is associated with concrete and other building materials. Cool, right? They became passionate about something niche that not a lot of people are talking about. And doing that project together really cemented their friendship as well. Get it? Here's another cool example. Ontario climate activist Bridget Fry uses her music to raise awareness of the climate crisis, and she has helped launch climate efforts within the Canadian music industry at only 19 years old. She uses her talents and the things that she's passionate about as a tool for climate action, and she's making a difference within her community. Bridget has reminded me of one of the most important parts of taking climate action, and that is to do what brings you joy and what you're passionate about. Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson says this: "How foolish is it if we don't ask people to do what they're good at in service of climate solutions?" Focus on what you're good at, what you can do, and don't worry about the things you can't. And something that makes it even more fun is taking action with friends. No one can do climate work alone. It will be too lonely. We need to work together to build collective power. That's how we will ultimately make change at a large scale. So let's recap. First, we learned that taking action is the antidote to hopelessness. Second, we talked about the 3 Ps: personal, public, and political space, and how we can take action in each of these areas. 3, we heard some stories about people taking action already. And 4, we learned that we should do things we enjoy and that we are good at. Here are some discussion questions to consider with your group. What is something that you care about and enjoy doing? Is there a way you can turn it into a climate solution? In this video, we focused on food. Pick another category, such as transportation or home energy, and think about it in terms of the 3 Ps. Try to come up with one action you could take in your personal, public, and political space. Is there an example of someone taking climate action that inspires you? What excites you about what they're doing?